So we're going to talk about freedom today. All of us, so many of us have spent our lives pursuing greater and greater degrees of freedom. We begin early in life rebelling against what our parents tell us, our teachers, our coaches, college professors, spouses, etc. But when I say rebel, I don't always mean an explosion of resistance, although that happens. Maybe for many of us it is just kind of looks like quiet obstinance. Maybe it is what some might classify as being passive aggressive, where we agree to their face but then resist through many other means. You see, there's nothing new about the pursuit of freedom, and conversely, there's nothing new about resistance to anyone trying to take what we perceive to be our freedom from us. God placed the desire to be free deep within each of our hearts and our psyches. The problem is the world has done an amazing job of corrupting the knowledge on what it takes to become truly free. We've been told to have it our way. It's our time now. We've spent our whole life giving to others. It's now time for us. We have a right to be happy, and so on and so on. You see, happiness and even freedom to an extent is a feeling, but it doesn't last, and it isn't joy, and the feeling of freedom isn't the same as truly being free. The feeling and the truth are distinctly different. We can experience moments of happiness and feelings of freedom, while at the same time, everything truly important is systematically being destroyed. Consider drug addiction and abuse. Have you ever gone through a deeply painful loss and took a break by trying to cheer yourself with a comedy or heck, maybe even a chemical happiness? Trying to create something light and enjoyable even though it's artificial and temporary. While that can lead to moments of happiness, what happens as soon as we return to the real world after the escape is over and the movie ends? Doesn't the memory and the pain just come flooding back? The paradox of true freedom is not happiness, good times, or absence of pain. It is in something quite unexpected. See, the paradox of freedom is this: freedom is not found where no demands are being placed on our lives or where worldly pleasures with no accountability are filling our time. The paradox of freedom is only through complete submission to the will of God, a willingness to become a true servant to His demands, do we become actually and permanently free. While the world tells you it's time to get yours and you have a right to be happy, the wisdom of God speaks completely differently. Let's look at some scriptures. This is Matthew 16:24 and 25. Then Jesus said to His disciples, "Whoever wants to be my disciple must deny themselves and take up their cross and follow me. For whoever wants to save their life will lose it, but whoever loses their life for me will find it." Check the closing of that verse. Whoever wants to save their life will lose it, and whoever will lose their life for me will save it. What does it mean to lose your life for me? It means to surrender your life to the will of God and be a servant of His, and by extension to all. Let's look at another scripture. This is in Luke 22:25 through 27. Jesus said to them, "The kings of the Gentiles lord it over them, and those who exercise authority over them call themselves benefactors. But you are not to be like that. Instead, the greatest among you should be like the youngest, and the one who rules like the one who serves. For who is greater, the one who is at the table or the one who serves? Is it not the one who is at the table? But I am among you as one who serves." Think about Jesus saying, even though the one at the table is greater, why is Jesus among us as one who serves? In the Bible, it says to love your neighbor as yourself, which is hardly a recipe for freedom by the world standards. But what does it mean to love your neighbor as yourself? And it goes on to say, love God above all. And why does the Bible say that all the law is fulfilled in keeping this one commandment? Simply put, what this commandment is saying is others' needs become on par with our own, and everything is under the will of God. Others' well-being becomes tied with our own. The love of others forces us to focus on their needs, basically, or at least theoretically, as much as we would our own. This is a pretty lofty standard that would seem to put a major load on our personal freedom. But here it is. When we commit to God's will and meet the needs of others, we become His servant. And in that servanthood, God frees our spirit. He leads us on a path of true joy, a journey kind of to deep love and understanding of the world around us as it truly is, not as we used to see it before we knew Him. And ultimately, this leads to unmatched spiritual freedom. See, this true freedom is different than what we might see portrayed in the media. Let's look at another scripture. This is in Galatians 5:13 and 14. You, my brothers and sisters, were called to be free, but do not use your freedom to indulge the flesh. Rather, serve one another humbly in love. For the entire law is fulfilled in keeping this one command: love your neighbor as yourself. You see, freedom isn't free, and of course, when we try to grab it with the tools of this world, we end up more and more locked in a cage of our own making. We kind of wrap ourselves with bars that are made with our own unmet desires. When we pursue freedom God's way, when we submit to His protection and stewardship, we become a willing servant of His greater purposes. We work toward His goals, and we participate in shaping the universe as a part of His perfect leadership. And here it is. This is the key that picks the lock to true and perfect freedom. You see, it is by bowing, bending the knee to our perfect King, to His perfect love, that we actually become lifted up, that our spirits become free, and that through the servanthood, we untie all the bonds and locks and brokenness that has kept us in the cage of our own making. Freedom isn't free. There's a price, and the price to real freedom, true freedom, is actually in servanthood. Something to think about. Until next time.